Hello, you spicy bean. Welcome back. If you're new, I'm Harriet, and recently I posted a video about my freelance career. So I have this YouTube channel, but on the side, I'm also a freelance video editor for large influencers and YouTubers. I didn't realize at the time how many people would want to go into this career path, how many people had questions about it. So this video is going to be split up into chapters. I will put the timestamps here, and also you can just scroll through the video, but I'm going to touch on contracts, money, the lifestyle, the pros and cons, how it is working with these big influencers. So definitely stick around if you're interested in finding out more. And if I forget any of your questions, leave them down below and I can answer them in another freelance vlog. The first chapter is about getting into the field. This was definitely a huge one, but the first question is, how can I get into this with no experience? If I was starting again from scratch, let's say I was doing a career change, I had no experience in editing, the first thing I would do is definitely stay at my current job. I know it can be really motivating to just like want to quit, start your new life. But while I was building up my freelance portfolio, I did have a day job. I worked part-time at a marketing agency where I was able to build up the skills for editing, but also have a consistent income. And then on the side, what I was doing was working on my own YouTube channel. I know that's not something that everybody wants to do, but having that portfolio is the reason why I'm able to get clients. This YouTube channel has helped so much. If I didn't have a YouTube channel, what I would do is ask friends, ask family if anybody films their life or maybe has a business that I could start editing for, do it for free, practice. I know working for free can be a little difficult, but especially if you're completely new, that's what I would recommend. Start building up your portfolio, and then of course on the side, upskill. Go on YouTube, get on Skillshare, really learn the in and outs of whichever editing program you're using. The next one is best way to cold pitch and find clients. Cold pitching is really hard. If you guys don't know what that is, it's what I suggested as a pathway to finding clients in my previous video, which is basically that you go and find YouTubers that you love and you just email them and say, hey, I want to be your editor. They can be really challenging. I personally, even though I have only 40K subscribers, I get emails every week asking people to edit my content. And I think for me, the way to even get a cold pitch read is to make your email stand out. So I would really avoid the subject line being something like video editor inquiry. I would make it something fun, something a little bit spicy, throw an emoji in there, whatever it is. I think the idea with cold pitches is not expecting to get a reply. Like, I've emailed so many creators who just didn't reply. I think it's just like, shoot your shot, cast your net. You might find that somebody does reply. On the side, of course, try and find clients in the more traditional way. The second part of their question was finding clients. So I've already suggested this, but my main advice is go onto YT Jobs. It's a crowdsourcing platform, I guess, where it connects YouTubers with editors. It is a little tricky. You have to weed through a lot of pretty shitty jobs for like $12 an hour, but it's definitely worth getting a profile on there. And then, yeah, just keeping an eye on Instagram stories, on community posts on YouTube, and seeing if your favorite creator is hiring, because a lot of the time they are. Like, I see stories all the time that say, I'm looking for an editor and you should apply. Also, just a note, it took me 2 years to find my first client. So if you feel like you're frustrated or you're behind, you're not. Keep practicing. I know it's frustrating, but once you break in, it's obviously so much easier to show people what you can do. So don't give up. You can do this, I promise. The next question is how to get clients in the vlogging niche. So I would say when you're first starting, don't be picky about the niche. Like, ideally you would work for your dream clients every time, but there is something to be said for just building up a portfolio, learning how to work with clients, all of that kind of stuff. So I've definitely worked for clients who aren't necessarily like, it's not content that I would watch, but it's still obviously helped me build my skills, build my client relationships, all of that. Don't be too picky when you first start, but once you have a good client roster and a good portfolio, and hopefully you're in a bit more demand and you're at the place where you can start turning down clients, then that's when you can pick and choose, like having vlogging clients or lifestyle clients versus other clients. I would also say if you just want vlogging clients, then that's the content that you should be putting in your portfolio too. The next question is there a short course you recommend doing to uplift skills? Yes, I am predominantly self-taught. I taught myself watching YouTube videos and going on Skillshare, and this portion of the video is sponsored, but I promise I actually use it, and it's such a great resource for freelancers, so don't skip. The course I found is insane. It's so valuable. Like, I wish I had watched this specific course when I started. It's Freelance Editing Essentials, Launch and Build Your Video Editing Career with Confidence. And why I love this course so much is it's not so much focused on the technical aspects of editing, but it's mainly focused on the business stuff. And that's the stuff that I had no idea about. Like, anyone can technically learn how to edit, and Skillshare has hundreds of courses on how to edit. But this one is so good because it talks about like money, it talks about deadlines, all of those businessy things that I feel like nobody talks about. If you guys happen to live under a rock and you've never heard of Skillshare, it is the largest online learning community for creatives. It has thousands of classes from design to film to illustration, of course, to freelance editing, and also productivity. Like, anything you want to learn, you can learn it on this platform. The first 500 people to use the link in my description to sign up to Skillshare will get a 1-month free trial, which you guys should 100% use. Please try this course. I genuinely think it will help you so much, and thank you so much, Skillshare, for sponsoring this portion of the video. The next chapter is about my process and workload. The first question is quite a big one. She said, how much experience did you have when you started applying for editing jobs? So I had about 4 years experience as a content producer working for like agencies and stuff. So it included editing. I would say like 80% of my job probably was editing, but I wasn't technically a video editor, if that makes sense. I would say about 2 years into that journey is when I started to think about going freelance, and I started emailing YouTubers and stuff, but I didn't take it seriously until maybe like at the end of that job, 4 years in. That's when I actually got my first client. So it was definitely a long road. Do you only edit for people with a video style you like, or would you edit for anyone? I'm at a point now where I try to find clients who align. It's not always easy, but I'm really happy with the direction of my current clients. Like, they're both in the lifestyle vlogging niche, which is what I like. But at the beginning, like I said before, I kind of would edit for anyone. Like, you kind of just have to take what jobs you can get in the beginning. She also asked, how do you know what parts to cut out? I'm worried that they would cut out different things than I would. This is gonna depend on like what kind of editor you are, but when I chat to them on the intro call where we're just like getting to know each other and stuff, I make it very clear that I'm happy to work however they want to work. However, my preference is that they give me the autonomy to make decisions like that. At the beginning, you're never going to get it perfect because it's a brand new person. You're learning their content, you're learning the way they work. But as you start to work together, you do start to really understand which parts they would keep, which parts they would remove. So it's just like any job, you're never gonna be 100% perfect straight away. It's a learning process. And I think as long as you communicate and there's that transparency and honesty, then it's fine. Like, they're not going to expect you to be perfect either. The next question is, how many hours do you edit to finish a vlog for a client? It really depends. I had so many questions on like how long it takes me to rough cut and all of this. It depends on the amount of raw footage they have. If it's like 4K, that can make a difference because it takes longer for my computer to run. Are there graphics? Like, what do they want from the edit? It really depends. I would say for my current clients, just based on like the general length of their videos, which is like 10 to 20 minutes, and the fact that they're not overly complicated edits that they're looking for, I would say between like 4 and 8 hours. But I had a previous client whose work was a lot more tedious and she was a lot more specific, and those videos took me up to like 10 or 12 hours. It just really depends. When you have a music subscription, usually they let you add the channel you're working with there so they don't get copyrighted, correct? But what if the client stops working with you? Does it put their channel at risk? Do you have recommendations for music subscriptions? So if you guys don't know, for YouTube specifically, they are very strict with copyright. So you might hear the terms like copyright free or royalty free music. That's music that you are allowed to use in your YouTube videos. There's also a separate thing, which is a paid subscription to a service. You might have heard of ones like Epidemic Sound or MusicBed. These are licensed music subscriptions. So that music is not copyright free, but you pay for the copyright and then you can use it in your channel. What a lot of these programs do though, is they connect to your YouTube channel so that they can flag like, okay, Harriet, for her scrivspo channel, she's paid us therefore she can use that song. But a lot of them have a limit to the amount of accounts. So a lot of them just say you can only have one account. So I understand where this question's coming from. For me, I pay for Epidemic Sound for my own personal channel. If a client also uses Epidemic Sound, then it's no issue because their account's already linked. I can use the songs with no dramas. If they had a different subscription, let's say Music Bed, I would just ask to use their login, which means that I have access to the songs, but we don't have to faff around with like me needing the same subscription as them. And to answer the last part of your question, yes, I recommend Epidemic Sound. I think they have a really great library. I love the way it's like filtered. I just think it's great. So, but I haven't tried the other ones really, to be honest. And if you wanted a free recommendation, the YouTube audio music library is really, really good. It's literally completely free. And I used to use Thematic, which is like cooler free songs. How to learn / ask what they want their videos to look like. So I actually have a Google form. It just asks a bunch of questions about like what they're looking for from an editor. What do they want their videos to look like? Are there any edits that they don't have time for? And I also ask them to send me references. So I make them send me 3 channels or 3 specific videos in which they want to kind of emulate in their own way, of course. And that just helps me so much understand what they're about, what their videos look like. But of course, also I look at their channel, I see what they're doing, and if they want it to stay consistent but like elevated, then I kind of use their channel as a reference. The next section is definitely the most requested, which is all about money and contracts. How to decide what to charge, per video or per hour. This is just so difficult for me to answer because honestly, there's not a heap of information online, and it also like does massively depend on where you live as well. So when I first got started, literally when I quit my job and went freelance and got my first client, I just Googled how much does a video editor make in Australia, and the number that came up was between $40 and $100 an hour, which is obviously a huge, like that's a massive range. So I decided for my first client that I would pitch myself at $65 an hour. I thought this was a great place to start because it was a little bit more than I was being paid at my part-time job, but also it left room for me to pay for the things that I would now need to pay for, like my monthly subscription to my editing software, Epidemic Sound subscription, like all of these kind of overhead costs. And for me, that was a great place to start. So I started on 65 an hour rate and I've just slowly worked up from there. Quickly, I realized that per hour was not for me because it felt like I was on a time crunch constantly. Like the way I see it now is a video is worth what a video is worth, regardless of how long I spend on it, and that I shouldn't be punished for being a fast editor. So I then moved to a per video price. I quickly wanted to talk about how I even came up with the per video price because I realized that I didn't mention this. So basically taking that $60 an hour rate that I started with, I would do a free trial and I would calculate the amount of hours that it took me to edit a video. So let's say it was 8 hours. So I would go 60 times 8 and then I would add about 30% onto that to cover all of my business expenses, tax, that kind of stuff. But then what I realized is that a client can still be flaky if you give them a per video price. So I moved to a monthly retainer model, which I'll talk about now because the next question was, please do you mind talking more about the retainer or a template on the contract? I did cover this in the previous video, but a monthly retainer is what all of my clients are now on. Basically, it's a fixed rate per month. They pay me X amount, let's say it's $2,000, and that gets them X amount of deliverables. So I'll use as an example, this is not what it is, I'm just using this as an example, but let's say $2,000 for 4 videos. Okay, so that puts it at the price of $500 per video if you calculate it that way. But they pay $2,000, they pay it on the 15th of the month, and that covers them for the next month. So they pay a month in advance. And basically, if they decide they don't have time to give me 4 videos that month, if they only give me 2 or 3, they still pay $2,000 regardless. I look at it as they're paying for my time because if they mess me around, not only is that annoying and a waste of my time, but also it's directly impacting my ability to work for other people because I could have spent that time doing another job, but I've committed to them. So it works really well for me, and clients I found have been really understanding about it. And I think it's great because they know exactly how much they need to pay every month. I had a lot of people asking me to share my contract and like how I implement the monthly retainer within the contract. So this person said, yeah, can you share your contract and see all of the requirements and how you implemented the month-to-month retainer? So I'll show you the sections of my contract which are relevant so that hopefully you guys can take away some learnings. But the first thing I want to say is that I just downloaded this template from Google. I'm obviously not a lawyer. This is just what I think works for me. But like, if this is wrong, or I just don't want to be liable for you guys, like please do your own research, run the contract through ChatGPT. He literally knows everything, and just be really, really careful that your contract covers what you need. Don't just go and copy mine, because this is tailored to me and like my needs as an editor. Okay, so this is my contract. I'm not going to show every section, but at the beginning, there's a services section and it just states what I'm going to be doing for them. So for this client, it's 3 videos a month on retainer. I have the price, and then I have extra video services ad hoc, which is basically if they need me for a 4th video for the month, then they can. And I've put my rate for that video, which is slightly higher than my retainer price. Down here, I have my revision section. So this says that the client is entitled to 3 rounds of revisions. And if they need more revisions, then it's billable at $75 an hour. And this is the part that everybody is curious about. So it says, retainer. As part of the contract, the client is entitled to up to 3 videos a month. If the client must miss a video for any reason, the work does not get carried over into the following month and they forfeit the missed video. If the freelancer must miss a video for any reason, the cost of the missed video will be deducted from the next invoice. So if I get sick or something like that, then it's deducted from the invoice because that's on me, but if it's on them, then they don't get that money back. I feel like when I explained it in the last video, it maybe sounded more complicated than it is, but that's literally it. Like, it's that simple. It's just stating the terms of the retainer in the contract so that everybody's clear. And it's such an easy fix, but I think it makes such a big difference to at least my mindset as a freelancer. The next question is, do you also sign contracts for project-wise clients? Yes, always have a contract for literally any job that you do as a freelancer. I know it can feel a bit extreme or a bit silly, but the one way to get people to fuck you around is to not have a contract. So you always need to just state what the project is, what your price is, what exactly you're doing for them, the payment terms. Like, if you don't have a contract, then how do you know when they're going to pay you? Whether it's they're paying you 50% upfront, 50% at the end, or if they pay you within 30 days of finishing the project. Like, always, always, always have a contract. And like I said, you can find free ones on Google. Opinion on working with revenue share contracts with YouTubers. This is actually a big thing when they say, oh, we'll pay you like $100 per video, which is very low, but we'll give you 20% of our ad revenue. For me personally, like, it's a personal decision. I don't think this is a good way to work. Having fluctuating income like that and having your pay be determined by their views and like their success is not good. That's on them. Like, they're the YouTuber and they've chosen to hire an editor. So I get paid to do my job. Their income might fluctuate because that's part of being a YouTuber, but it doesn't mean that yours should. So I would advise to stick away from these kinds of contracts. Like, I just don't think it's a fair way to compensate a video editor, but also it's obviously each to their own. It's your decision. It's just not, I don't think it values the freelancer like it should. How do you know when you're ready to level up and charge more for your services? I think that every 3 months or so, you should reassess like how you're feeling, how your client's feeling, whether you think things are going well. Maybe jump on a call, Zoom call, and just chat with them. And if you feel like things are going really well, if you feel like they are showing signs that like they can't do it without you, then it's probably a good idea to talk about upping your rate. In my contract, I do have a thing that says like my prices are subject to change or something like that. I personally would up my rate maybe every 6 months to a year, but I think it's always good to reassess. The next question is similar. It says, please, how do you professionally let your clients know your rates are increasing? This is when I would use ChatGPT. I know some people hate AI, but honestly, I just would run this straight through them and just like talk to, I call him Chad, but talk to Chad about it. But I would just say something like, hey, I know things have been going really well. Like, thank you so much for all of your positive feedback. I feel really great about our working relationship. However, due to increased demand and, you know, whatever, you can maybe your demand's increasing. Like, what are the reasons why you want to up your rate? Maybe you feel like your editing has gotten better, maybe you've been upskilling. Please let me know if that's okay with you, and happy to talk about it. And then if they come back and they say, no, we want to stick with our current rate, you can say, okay, no worries, that will get you one less video a month or whatever. So like, they can still pay what they want to pay, you just shift your deliverables with them. The last money question is being freelance complicated when it comes to tax? I wouldn't say it's complicated. I mean, it's more complicated than obviously working a full-time job where your tax is just taken out of every paycheck. Instead of that, we have to keep a track of all of our income and all of our expenses and basically save up for tax time. And then you typically need an accountant. I have an accountant who just does it for me. Highly recommend investing in an accountant if you are making money from freelance work, because it's so much easier. You send them off your tax document and then you either get a tax bill, or if you're lucky and your expenses are quite a lot, you might not have to pay tax at all. Again, depending on how much you make versus how much you spend. It's not like overly complicated. It's definitely an extra step to think about though. Like, I don't love tax, but also I'm grateful for this job, so it's kind of just part of it. The final thing I wanted to say is a lot of people ask specifically like, how much should they charge? How much do I make? What's the ceiling for being a freelance editor? And I'm not at all trying to gatekeep, but it's just like so difficult to give you a price because it really depends. Like, I create custom quote packages for every single one of my clients. So like, as well as video editing, I also do thumbnails, I do short form. Sometimes I manage their YouTube like accounts for them. I also do strategy with one of my clients as well. So we jump on a monthly brainstorm call. So it's not as simple as me being like, this is the price per video. But what I will say is, I think that you should not be charging less than $50 an hour if you have the skills. Like, of course, if you're literally a novice, then this advice isn't for you. But I think there are so many video editors who charge like $10 an hour. And I think it's unfortunately screwing over all of us because it is easy to find a cheap video editor. It's better for all of us to just like band together and say, this is the minimum because I don't know, I just think it does take so much skill to do it, and it also takes a lot of cost. Like, there's so many costs that are involved. The editing software, the computer. If you're undercharging, it not only screws you, but it actually screws other editors as well. So that would be like my guide, my baseline, but it really depends on where you live. The last chapter is all about working as a YouTube editor. This is just kind of the random questions about the lifestyle, about the job that you guys wanted to know. What are the work relationship vibes with the YouTubers? Is it like manager, co-worker, work bestie, or client? YouTube seems very casual and friendly compared to a usual 9-to-5 environment. It is more casual, I would say, but in saying that, if you are a video editor that's worked in TV production for 20 years, you're probably gonna have a level of professionalism and maybe a slight like corporate style of communicating as opposed to someone else. The benefit of working for YouTubers is that you can watch their content and get an idea of their vibe, and I kind of just try and match their energy on the call. In terms of the actual working relationship, I think it falls more between like co-worker slash work bestie than it does a boss-employee relationship. I think I'm just lucky though that my clients really do trust me, and in a lot of ways I take the lead on their YouTube channel. I give them suggestions, I give them feedback, and so I build relationships where they do trust my opinion. And so rather than it being them like telling me what to do, of course they get the final say, but it becomes more like, let's work together to create the best project that we can create, to create the best video, the best channel. I love being in a casual work environment where there's trust and autonomy, and like I prefer to communicate, for example, by voice memo rather than email. So those little things I think are a lot more casual than a traditional work environment, and I love it because I'm not really a corporate girl. I got this question actually so much, but someone said, how do you handle your work when you go on vacation? Do you plan / edit everything before traveling? So like I mentioned at the very beginning, my business is like twofold. I have my personal YouTube channel, you're on it right now, scrivspo, it's like books and lifestyle videos, and then I have my client work. For scrivspo, my personal channel, that is my baby, so I can choose what I do, but typically I'll try and like get content sorted for the trip and plan ahead. For clients, it's kind of up to them, but because I work on a monthly retainer basis, the easiest way is just to skip the time that I work for them. So a great example, I just got back from Europe. I was away for the entire month of June. And so I communicated with my clients and we decided that I just would take off June and they wouldn't pay me the monthly retainer for June. And then when I get back, everything is normal. That's the way that I like to work. I also really appreciate having time off and having clients who are willing to give me that time off. So that's how I do it. Everyone's different. But something about being a freelancer that you might not think about is we don't get paid leave. So that's another reason to make your rate higher, because it kind of covers that time. Samantha said, how does it work with editing software? Do your clients need to have what you use? No, if I'm just editing for them as I usually do, they don't need to touch the project, so I can use whatever I want. I personally use Final Cut Pro, but in the past I have done like co-editing, which is basically when I might do the rough cut and then I would send the client the editing file and then they would finish up the project and do the final touches. And in that case, we obviously do need the same program, but I don't really do that anymore. Any tea to share? I know you probably can't share names, specifics, but in general, have you ever worked with any YouTubers that caused you drama? Luckily, no. All my clients have been really kind, really respectful. I do have a little bit of tea actually, I've just thought about it. So one time I was editing a Q&A for a client and the question, this was not the question, but I'm gonna give you a fake example. So it was like, do you prefer Apple products or Samsung products? So two kind of similar things, but different brands, right? And the client went on a rant about, in this example, Samsung products, how shit they are, how much they hate them and stuff. I was looking on Instagram and I saw that that client was sponsored by Samsung in the past. And I was like, that is crazy. Like that was just a crazy moment for me where I was like, wow, like you really can't always believe these influencers when they have brand deals, because like sometimes it is just to get the paycheck. And I was just like, whoa, this is bold to post this on your YouTube channel, like knowing that you did a brand deal with this brand that you're now publicly roasting. Oh, I just was like, and I was kind of waiting for them to be called out for it, but nobody did. But little things like that, you do get glimpses of that kind of stuff when you're editing raw footage. And then I guess something else that you guys probably wouldn't know is like, there's a lot that gets cut out. Sometimes they'll like speak to me directly in the raw footage, which I always find really cute. Or like, yeah, you get a glimpse of like really who somebody is outside of the polished finished product. And it's always interesting to see if they're like the same or different. But this is like genuinely no shade. I have genuinely loved all of my clients, but if I had to pick, that would be the tea. I've been in the game for a while and I'm about to land my first big client, 7 million plus subs. Congrats, that's insane. What should I expect and overcome feelings of not being good enough? Honestly, imposter syndrome is like a part of being a freelancer, but my advice would be just gaslight yourself into thinking it's no different than any other client, because at the end of the day, it really isn't. Like 7 million is just a number. Obviously the video is going to be seen by more people, but you obviously were hired for a reason. You are more than capable of doing this. And in fact, a person with 7 million subscribers is gonna vet their editor way more intensely, I would argue, than someone with 50,000 subscribers. So that means that you've passed the test to like the most extreme level, and try and enjoy it, because not a lot of people get that experience in life and you're obviously really talented. So good for you. The final question is pros and cons, and I think this is a great place to end. The main con for me is you have to be really self-motivated, and sometimes I'm not. I'm a lazy person and I do tend to procrastinate, and that is not conducive to being a good freelance editor. So you have to build structure and routine, something I'm working on, something I'll always work on, because I don't think I'm ever gonna get there. It can be quite expensive, like in terms of your costs, and especially when you're getting started, you might not have a paid client and you have to like invest in the software and stuff, which is really difficult. Even just like getting a hard drive. Like I just spent $500 for 2 hard drives. Like that's insane. Obviously a lot of those things aren't necessary, but they're necessary for me at the place that I'm at now. And I think a lot of people don't think about that. Another con is sometimes it can get a bit boring. I think it's obviously, it sounds very glamorous, but depending on who you're editing for, like a lot of the content can be a little repetitive. And sometimes clients say that they want these crazy edits and like they want you to be creative, but if you're just editing like a lifestyle vlog, a lot of the time it can be a bit monotonous. So I find ways to make it exciting, and I love my current clients' content, so that's not really an issue. But in the past, I have been like, oh, another day in the life. Do you know what I mean? Another con is that you really do have to have a lot of assertiveness and self-confidence, and I wouldn't say that's like naturally my state. So I do spend a lot of time fighting, not fighting, but you have to just like constantly prove your worth, I think. And sometimes you just want people to just believe you and just like accept your worth. But when people are constantly like trying to barter down your rates, negotiate terms, like I know it's part of the job, but it just can get a bit exhausting sometimes. The final con is loneliness. I don't have colleagues. Like obviously I work for clients, but as of right now, none of them are based in Melbourne, the city that I live in. So I talk to them on Zoom, and I don't talk to them that often. Like it's just a quick text or a quick voice memo every now and then. And I don't have, I don't work with anyone. I just work in this apartment with my boyfriend who's a musician, but like it's not the same as going into an office, having a lunch break, like going for coffee with a colleague. It's not like that. In terms of pros, luckily there are a lot more pros than cons. The main pro, I have ultimate freedom. Literally, I could do whatever I want this week. I don't have to work technically. Like if I wanted to put it off till next week, I can. That's amazing. And having worked in full-time jobs, part-time jobs, working multiple jobs at the same time, I will never take that for granted. I'm so lucky to be able to do this as my job and have freedom. Like I just can't believe it still. The next pro is that I am paid really well for what I do and for the amount that I work. Like as of right now, I probably work for my clients 1 to 2 days a week, and I'm making more than I made at my full-time job. So like I will never take that for granted ever. I think it's insane, but also I do recognize the hard work and like grit that it took me to get here, because I think a lot of people do give up before they can get to this place. And luckily I, for whatever reason, have managed to just like persevere through all of the no's and all of the rejection that I've been given. And now I'm here and I'm so grateful for it. Another pro is I get to be creative every day. I absolutely love video editing. It's literally my #1 passion in life. I've done it since I was like 15 as a hobbyist, and now the fact that it's my full-time career just is amazing. I get to basically just play and have fun every day, and I just love it. Another pro is that it's really built up my self-confidence. Like I wouldn't say I'm a particularly self-confident person, but when it comes to this job, I just know that I'm good at it, and I know that I can give my client a unique experience that they wouldn't get with another editor. And I know that my clients are happy, and I will continue to keep them happy because I'll communicate, I'll upskill, like all of these things that are so important, I naturally want to do, which really helps. And finally, another pro is that I think the ceiling is pretty endless. Like I could start my own editing business if I wanted to. I think my rate can continue to go up as I become better and better at what I do. I could move into another part of the industry if I wanted to. Like I think there's a lot that I can do with it. And so it's not like I'm just stuck in one spot. Even though there's no hierarchy, there's no like promotions, I think what I can do is so much better for me personally. And yeah, I just love it. Like I literally love it so much. If it's something that you want to do, you can. You just have to persevere. You have to build up your portfolio. You have to upskill, get on Skillshare. They're amazing. And just send it. Like life's too short not to do what you love. If you have a full-time job, but this is something that you want to do, start editing videos on the side and see what happens. Like you never know. I did not think I would be here 5 years ago. And here I am, and I love it so much, and I'm so grateful. That's everything. If I didn't answer any of your questions, leave them down below. I will answer them through a comment, or maybe I'll include them in a future editing video. And if you guys have any editing specific videos that you want to see, let me know and I will make that content. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you Skillshare for sponsoring this video. As I mentioned, click the link below to get a 1-month free trial that's available to the first 500 people who use the link. Thank you again, and I'll see you guys next week with a new video. Bye.